Hello, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me in Speak Your Truth conversation.
Always happy to do it. Yeah.
So thank you, David. Thank you to everyone that's watching. I hope that lots of people are watching. Today's conversation is with David, and I'm aware that he's in South America and that he's most recently had a most wonderful adventure. But first of all, David, would you like to just introduce yourself? How would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, can I introduce myself? Hi, I'm Dave Edelstein. I'm hunkered down in Cuenca, Ecuador, where we're all waiting for the tsunami of coronavirus to change our lives, hoping that it's not going to change it as radically as it looks like it will. I always enjoy talking with Helen Gibson. We've had interaction before, studying coaching practices together. A person always with a positive and creative approach to life. So I'm glad to be here with you, Helen, and let's see what we get into. Let's see what we start talking about.
That is so cool. Thank you so much, David. As I said earlier, I know that you had an adventure within the last year or so. I think it's about the last year, 8 to 18 months. And I know that when you went off and I knew you'd gone off, I was like, oh, I'd love to do something like that. So can you tell me exactly what it was you did, where you went, and your experience of that? And for starters, what was your experience? What was your adventure?
Well, it turns out that teaching English as a foreign language is a great path to adventure. I wouldn't have thought this when I was a kid and planning my career, but there is a worldwide demand for English language skills, tourism, business, this, that. And over the past 8 years, I've lived mostly in Ecuador and worked mostly as an English as a foreign language teacher. A little over a year ago, I had perhaps my most out there English teaching experience. I was invited to teach English at Ecuador's Peruvian border in the Amazon region of Ecuador. Ecuador, we tend to think of the Amazon region as belonging mostly to Brazil, and it does. But Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia also have Amazonian territory with all of the elements that one would associate with Amazonia, indigenous people with traditional customs, fantastic biodiversity, deep forest, and lots of rivers. I was invited by the Martinica community, which has an eco hostel called Yaku Warmi, a woman of the water, at very much at the point. Ecuador has an eastern triangular point, and it's there. And the reason that it's called Yaku Warmi is that they have the pink dolphin in this area. So if you go to Yaku Warmi, you can see the pink dolphin. I have seen the pink dolphin. Put this on your bucket list. If you don't see the pink dolphin, you're missing something. It's the biggest pink thing in the world. There's nothing like it. The Martinica community is, it's not really a tribal community. It's not deeply traditional, but it is a Quechua community. It is a community of indigenous people of Ecuador. And I had gone there to see the pink dolphin. And as we were hanging around and talking, they're like, oh, you teach English. How about coming to teach English to us? We want to have international tourists. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So they invited me, and I stayed for 5 months. I did come back to Cuenca to visit my wife for a week every month, but I was out there for 5 months. I lived in a town called Nueva Rocafuerte, which is across the river from Martinica. I think the community just felt that it would be a better idea. The Martinica side doesn't have running water or electric lights or really anything of the modern world.
Wow.
I think that they thought I might not quite be able to handle it. But they set me up in a little house that was actually the community office that did have electric lights and running water. No hot water, but running water, and a flushing toilet. That was not everybody in Nueva Rocafuerte has one of those. So I was very well taken care of, and I taught English 2 to 4 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Was that to all age groups, David?
We started out with all age groups, and it turned out not to be practical for me to work with little kids. There was a time when we thought that after school, the Martinica kids would come and I would give them an English class for kids. And that never really gelled. The kids would finish school and they would have homework and they would this and that, and they didn't really want to come.
They were learned out for that day.
Yeah, they were. They definitely had enough. But every day I would cross the river to Martinica, and I had a group there. Sometimes that included children, but mostly it was teenagers and young adults. And then I would come back to my Rocafuerte, and on that side, I had really a mix of from kids. I guess my youngest student was like 10 or 11 years old, up to adults, parents.
Those two communities now, they have English speakers within those two communities, which will actually pass on and teach English to the younger ones anyway. Would that be right in thinking that?
That was the original goal. In the end, there were a certain number of students who had that capacity. One young man is now the do-all of Yacuwarmi for non-Spanish speakers, because he has all the vocabulary of tourism for that Eco Hostal, and he has the capacity to teach his friends that same vocabulary, that same language. I will admit frankly here that this did not take off the way that I hoped. I hoped that I would spend more than 5 months working with the people in Martinica, and that this really would be a community interactive project where everyone was teaching everyone else. And I described it that way to the community when I first arrived, because every Sunday they have a community meeting, and I went and I explained this, and it turned out that there were certain very dedicated people who never missed a class, who came week after week, month after month, and never missed. Many other people found other things that they needed to do more. It's a small community. It's way out on the frontier. People have other needs. They couldn't always make time to study. The reality was that there was a core group on the Martinica side and on the Nueva Rocafuerte side of 6 to 10 people on each side. And I did what I felt was the best that I could do. And when we reached a point that attendance these classes were free. When we reached a point that attendance just was not justifying my presence anymore, we called it a day, and I came back to Cuenca. This is a common experience with free English classes, not only in Ecuador, but from what I understand, much of Latin America, may also be true in other parts of the world. People come for a time. The idea of learning something new excites people. People do want to learn. The reality of learning, the effort involved, the difficulty that it may present, the need to do other things, uh, the routine of doing it every day at the same time. Um, people tire.
Okay, so
Uh,
David, what did you learn about you during that experience? Was there any learning for you in regards to you?
there was. I went out, kind of as I said, with kind of a grandiose vision that I was going to get all of the members of Martinica, which is something like 100 people, speaking English to each other. At least, hello, how are you? That everybody would be involved at the level that they wished to be. The idea that I would draw that kind of attention and motivation was not realistic. From early on, about I think the most numbers that I ever had was about 40 out of the 100 people. Okay. But that number did not last for very long. As I say, people tire.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to have to adjust my expectation and what I was doing to sort of focus on those who really had a higher level of commitment. Because if someone's coming 3 days a week and someone's coming 6 days a week, the person who's coming 3 days a week is not going to learn everything.
Yeah,
That it just isn't going to happen.
so what was your learning in this? I'm trying to, was it that because I'm trying to just hear what you learned for you. And I think what I'm
I
hearing
learned
is
that
that
I had to serve. I learned that I had to serve, and that I had to serve those who really were committed to this.
was that difficult to learn, or was it an easy
Yes.
lesson? Or what kind of lesson was that? Was it painful, or was it smooth and transitional, or?
No, it was rough. There was a point where I had a pretty consistent 12 to 15 coming every day in Martinica, on the Martinica side. And this was going really well. Those who were learning faster were helping those who were learning slower. It was really working as well as I could have hoped for those 12 to 15 people. And then there was a need for people to do, there was a need for people to help each other at each other's farms. And it created a tremendous interruption to that class. And many people of that 12 to 15, perhaps half, never returned after that occurred. This was in December. Some of them never came back. And I was very disappointed. I was disappointed in the community. I was like, the people who are coming to this class are doing community work because it's for the good of the tourism program. They should be exempt. But that's not my call. I had to let that go. I had to let it all go. I had to focus in on the young people who came and continued to come and were there every day because they wanted to be, and make my teaching experience and make my work focused on them, and let other people go. It wasn't easy for me to let them go. That wasn't easy. I didn't go out there to not teach people.
Okay, so you had to manage your own expectations and your own
Yes,
desires
that
more
I
so
think
than. And
I think that was the most difficult thing.
what has the feedback been? I mean, you've been back some time, so have you kept connections? Has something else grown from it that wasn't quite expected or was expected, or what? Or how is that now?
Well, what I have had to accept, and I now accept rather proudly, is that I believe that I have changed the life of one person.
How fabulous! I'm really excited for that. I think that's fabulous.
One person. As I said, this young man whose name is Jairo, I met him when I went out as a tourist. He was working as the hostal's cook. he is a guy who completed high school in Nueva Rocafuerte, went to live for a while in Quito, went to live for a while in a town in the north of Ecuador called Otavalo, which is a center of traditional mountain culture. But he returned to his home in the Amazon. Not everybody does that. Many young people feel that, no, this is just too, I can't live, I can't live this dream. To us, it seems like a dream to live in the jungle and hunt and fish and farm and, and live on the edge. It's not for everybody. Many people, even many people who are from that area, say, I could live more easily and better somewhere else. But he is a unique person. He's just very, very much rooted to his place.
Has he changed?
His family's spot by the river. His father makes canoes. He also makes canoes. He hunts. He fishes. He farms. This is his life. This is the life that he wants. He wants to be in his traditional zone, and he wants to share that with people.
Can I just like to ask, how you've changed his life? The way that I hear you speaking about him, has he changed yours?
Not as much as he should have, or not as much as I should have let him.
Okay, so you've held on to
the
something for yourself.
The way that I changed his life is that I taught him enough English to cook, manage, and guide for the Eco Hostel. He can do it all.
Okay.
He can do it all in English. He could not do that when I met him. He can do it all. He can collect people from the airport in Coca. He can bring them down the river. He can tell people what they're seeing. I mean, this was, he really went a long way. Did he change mine? Well, you meet people and you admire them. And this changes you. This change. Who do you admire? I play the guitar. So as many musicians do, you have heroes, you have musical heroes. You copy their sound to some extent. You copy phrases that they play so that you can play them too, and you can figure out, why does it sound like that? Why do I like it so much? And then you try to, so here's somebody whom I admire. I admire his rootedness. Obviously, I'm living thousands of kilometers from my roots. This was driven home to me back in September. My father passed away after a long illness, and there I was with my family, and I said, these are good people who deserve more of my time and attention than they get. So here's my student, Jairo, who traveled at least around Ecuador, but came home because his roots are in Martinica. He has to be there.
So is this something that you're thinking of now?
Yeah, I don't think that I can reroute myself in the United States. There's a number of financial issues that make that nearly impossible for me. But the awareness of where my roots are, to whom I am connected, what is my relationship to my environment? Yeah, I think that Jairo did change me. He also gave me the opportunity to feel worthy. This is something. When someone does that, sometimes people who give charity. I think this is something from Buddhism that says that when you give charity, you should thank the person who accepts your charity for allowing you to feel worthy and allowing you to do the right thing.
Yeah, we.
I definitely embrace that view. You know, my students, I mean, I was not the first student I've had. I was a high school teacher for a long time. I've done a lot of teaching in Ecuador also. Yes, I am grateful to my students for making the information that I share with them part of their lives, making
That's
me
a testament to your life. That's fabulous to know that. I mean, you say that this you change one life, but it sounds to me as if over the years you have definitely influenced and impacted many lives, and with what I've just heard you say, and that I love that when you just said about making you feel worthy, or sorry, I can't remember exact phrasing, but it did kind of tap into something that that I'm aware of. That it's very rare that we allow people. When you were saying about charity, it's very rare when we actually allow someone to say thank you to us, or to offer us their gratitude. We can be very dismissive. We can try, and I don't know if it's not a British thing, although oh, it was nothing, oh, it was nothing, and we wave off whatever we've done rather than just saying, I accept, thank you, and it actually takes practice and an awareness to do that, to accept that gratitude in such a way. I don't know if I'm quite there yet myself, because I tend to go very extra the other way and go, of course, but to accept someone's gratitude with humility and acceptance, actually to just accept the gratitude, it's very difficult to do. And it's quite a fine line between brushing it off and then no, maybe that's not a fine line. Maybe there's a vast chasm, but or that. Well, of course you should be grateful.
Well, it's that point where you feel that you've earned it. That you've earned it. That
yeah, I can see that.
Yes, I've earned this much gratitude, and it didn't happen because, of course, the other person should be grateful. It happened because I earned it. I did the right thing. I did enough.
So
to
do you
to be
think
worthy.
then that we only, because that I'm wondering now, does that tie into so when someone's saying that they're grateful, that within ourselves we have our own gauge of how grateful they should be, depending on how much we feel we've put in, when in all fairness sometimes we have no concept. I mean, some of the simplest, and I mean, there's a big push at the moment for the mindfulness and for the compassion. And I know that over the last few, we've had our own conversations. But do we, by sort of, on that sort of, I've earned this. So there's a point where you feel, yes, I've earned that much gratitude, or do you just accept, I've earned gratitude, so I'm going to accept whatever, however it comes? Because some people, you might think you've done very little, and you're like, oh no, it's fine. But to them, you have just, I mean, as I say, some of the simplest things, you can just renew someone's faith. Someone borrowed us a car once. They'd never met us, and we needed a vehicle, and they let us use their BMW, and it wasn't an old BMW. But that gesture to them was nothing, but to me it was like, wow, you've just given me a Beamer. Which I thought was, it was a simple gesture, but not a simple gesture. But it renews your faith in humanity. So do you think that then on the gratitude front that we perhaps shouldn't be thinking, no, well, you've said about earning the gratitude, that point that you've earned it. But does that mean that we are then, you can see me kind of trying to figure this out, can't you?
Yeah. Yep.
Does that mean then,
definitely working hard on this?
Yeah, the smoke's coming out. So we accept the gratitude to a point that we feel we've earned it, and then anything over that, do we then not diminish, but do we then almost say that what they feel that they've get, are we what's the word I'm looking for, negating the impact that we may have had upon them because they wish to give us, they wish to gush more with their gratitude or something. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
we have to learn to accept gratitude, but do we not just have to learn to accept it wholly and however it comes? And it can be incredibly uncomfortable.
Well, again, I think it's a mutual thing. As I think I mentioned before, when you do something with the idea that you're doing it for someone, there's also, in the same moment, their willingness to accept your advice, your help, your work, your interest. Not everybody will. Not everybody. That this person has let you in. In that sense, I feel gratitude is very much a two-way street. That yes, this person is grateful for this, whatever that you did or said, but that it's also important to be grateful that they allowed us to do so.
Absolutely.
That this does something important for us as givers. We are the givers.
Yeah.
If we are the givers, it's very easy for that to devolve into a situation of higher and lower. I'm giving, you're receiving.
Yes.
Gravity. It's from the top down.
Yes.
It's not. We're having an interaction. We're having an interaction. And I am providing, in theory, something to you. I'm providing English lessons to you. You receive them. You find benefit in them. You thank me for them. But I also have all of the satisfactions of seeing my approach to teaching English work. That it works.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it works. This person is learning because of the way that I work.
There's a lovely sense of validation in that as well, isn't there?
Of feeling realized, accomplished, effective, competent. I have all of those satisfactions thanks to this person who makes that real.
So do you think it's more about our timing?
It would be easy for that to be lost in my Martinica situation because so many people did not receive the fullness of what I was trying to offer. Say, oh, Dave, maybe you should have done it a different way or tried something else, or maybe this, or maybe that. Maybe you didn't attract people enough, or that. I think at a certain point, one does have to let oneself off the hook.
After you've done all the monitoring and evaluating.
I'm showing up for class. No one ever said to me, could you this or that? That I said no. I did try to make it as palatable and as accessible as possible. But whatever satisfactions there were, I'm still in touch through the social media. I'm still in touch with about 25 of the people of Martinica.
Well, is the experience that you have? Because I suppose I'm thinking of my engagements with you myself, and there always seems to be that quest from you, that questioning, and that quest for, have I done enough? Have I done this right? Did I do that right? And that constant questioning. And I'm wondering, is it related to you becoming one with the fact that you have done enough? I'm not sure that you actually are, I don't know, would I be leaping off a ledge if I into the wrong direction if I said that you struggle with knowing that you have done enough?
Oh, I definitely do. One of the sort of shocking slap in the face moments of the last year, this occurred after I left Martinica. a friend of mine asked me to read an article about narcissism. And I'm reading this thing, and there was this sudden hideous gestalt moment when I realized that I suffer from a, not the disgusting, abusive, psychopathic narcissism, but the kind of narcissism where you feel like you are special in some way and obligated to demonstrate that specialness on a regular basis. It makes you very thin-skinned to criticism, which I am. And it also makes you a bottomless pit for the need for external approval, in the sense that everything that you do is disappointing. It doesn't fulfill this distorted, bloated, narcissistic self-image of, well, I should be better at this than I am.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, a lot of things about my personality fell screaming into place all at once, like, oh, this explains so much. It is very, very difficult for me to feel that I've done enough, that what I'm doing is even worth my time, that the opportunities I do find are adequate to my self-perception. It's difficult, very, very difficult. This thing of Martinica and the English lessons, it was a real struggle that, people are not attending and classes are shrinking and this isn't going brilliantly well. It was very hard for me.
But do you now, can you, because of the feedback that you got and that that you changed a life, are you now able to kind of go, you know what, it was good enough? I know you know that term.
I've had to accept that is good enough. I hope that I'm not kidding myself about that.
I don't think you are. I don't
changed a life. That it would have to be at least that much for me to feel that I hadn't failed. I don't think that I have failed. I think that Jairo is now capable of doing something that no one else in Martinica could do.
And others are more. There's not just you talked to more than one. He may have been the pupil that you feel you gained the most, but there were others as well. And everybody, but anyone that actually had even one or two classes with you, learnt a little. Everybody learnt something. So that and every day is a school day, and how we learn and what we learn and everything else is. There's so many variables, but I think I'm confident in saying after talking with you that there is more than just one that gained knowledge and skills and learned a little bit more English.
I think that's probably true. Some of the kids were high school kids. Some of the kids were school kids, and working with me did help them to do better in high school, English class.
And you have no concept either, where, especially with the younger ones, that's the thing when like over the years, obviously as you get older, you meet people who you knew when they were younger, and then they'll turn around and say something to you, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that you had a way bigger impact on their lives than you even knew that you had any comprehension about. I want to, because I'm kind of aware of time and its preciousness as well. So I'm going to draw.
Oh, sure. Let's go ahead.
I'm going to start to just draw this in a little bit because I know that I could, we could talk for, we have talked for a long time, so I'm very aware of that and the purpose of this. But I'm going to ask you, number one, do you have any? There's a couple, just a couple of questions. Do you have any plans for the next 3 to 12 months? Anything in the pipeline that you'd like to share? If you don't,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Well, we're in a fascinating time.
Oh
What
yeah.
is it? Something about a curse. May you live in interesting times. Being being a curse. It's funny. Just last week, I was heading out to try and arrange some volunteer work for myself here in Cuenca. There is a refugee agency that I understand is mostly working with Venezuelans near my house. I also stopped by the local high school, which is 2 blocks away, and asked if they might be interested in having me teach some English. There are some volunteer opportunities for me in Cuenca that I had not pursued yet. And I got to the point where I started to feel that my situation really required me to socialize in that way and to get out and to give more of myself. I
And
spent
then this
5 months.
darned virus came along and made everybody housebound.
Yes, and I'm over 60. I'm a heart attack survivor. I'm in the high risk group. Um, Also, fascinatingly, there's a baby in our house. My wife's grandson and her son-in-law and daughter. They're all living in our house. So there's a 2-month-old. He's 2 months old today, living in our house.
Oh,
It's been a long time since I handled a baby, but this also makes us very alert to
yeah. A
illness.
blessing there, though,
Uh,
having a baby in the
One
house.
doesn't want to be a germaphobe and doesn't want to turn into Howard Hughes, but yeah, there is. I take this thing seriously. There's a need to stay home. There's a
Yeah.
need to stay home. There's a need to not spread this to other people. So now the question is, well, the next 3 to 5 months, will we even really get out of the house very much? Will life
Mhm.
return to normal in 3 to 5 months? It might. Ecuador is taking, I think, strong steps to stump this thing out. I don't know if it will work. Ecuadorians are very imaginative, um, um, free people. I heard about
They seem to bring you joy,
free,
David. Your face when you're talking of them.
free buses going from one of the point centers of infection to the beach yesterday.
Okay.
So there is a lot of uh, cultural communication or cultural contagion of this. We're going to have to see how that plays out. I guess a question is, well, how can you use the time well? I've been reading about, on the internet, Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton, during the plague of his university years, went home and invented calculus and physics. I'm
You setting
obviously not going
yourself
to
a
invent
challenge
calculus
there,
and physics.
David.
I'm not going to invent calculus and physics. It's already invented. I don't have that kind of capacity. But you know, I'm trying to be creative. Um, uh, I'm teaching. I have an online English student in China. I'll be teaching her every other day over the next 3 weeks. I have what will now be an online student from the rural area where I first reached Ecuador. He came to the house on Saturday, but now we're going to stay home so he doesn't have to take the bus. And so I'm going to have this online life as an English teacher.
You are a
Um,
teacher, David.
yeah, it kind of happens instinctively.
Okay.
Um, I also, while I was in Nicaragua, I started writing. I've long had this fantasy of myself as a writer of fiction. I'm not very good at this, or I'm a narcissistic disappointment to myself in this area, but I have been writing stories, and I think, you know, this is a kind of a legacy that perhaps I'll leave to my children. Um, uh,
Fabulous.
so I've
Lovely.
been cranking out stories. I'm not cranking out stories. I'm dribbling out stories. They come out. They come out like a couple of hundred words at a time. Um, uh, and I spend a lot of time playing the guitar.
So you're very
Uh,
busy. You've got a lot. You irrelevant of whether what's happening. You've got lots of different things on, and they all the pleasure sounds as if it's coming from the guitar, but the rest. I get a sense that there is you truly enjoy the teaching and sharing the knowledge and imparting things to others that will hopefully be of benefit to them.
it's a very it's a very rewarding experience. Teaching is complicated. Teachers are overpaid. Teachers are underpaid.
Oh, let's
Teachers
not go down that route.
teachers teachers do not teach primarily for pay. If teachers were money motivated, they'd probably do something else.
I think that's true of a lot of professions. That
I think it is true of a
you know,
lot of.
because there is lots more to work than the money that we receive. I'm going to ask you my final question. What
Sure.
truth would you like to share?
What truth would I like to share? I'll try this one. I I hope this does not come out very dark or very. It's good. You know, we mentioned political incorrectness as we were setting this up. Um, on the internet today, um, there's a lot of talk. Excuse me, I'm going to have to plug in. On the
Okay.
internet today, there's a lot of talk about um, people. Uh, people are waiting for um, different kinds of wisdom from you that you should get on the internet. Not you personally, Helen. You have loads of wisdom to offer, but
Oh, thank you.
that you as an internet user, as a social media user, that the world is waiting for you to crank out your uh, insight into the way people live. Relationship coach, coaching coach, um, life coach. People are not waiting for this. People know how to live their lives. People don't always get it right. You know, you could look, relationship coaching, which was an area that I tried to get into. You can look at certain kinds of relationships and say, that relationship could be better. I see ways in which that relationship could be kinder, more caring, more committed, more something, more positive. Only the people living that relationship can fix it. They may look outside for help. That may be part of how one or both of them operates, but they will only take what they already believe and apply it. If you give them advice that runs counter to what they believe, they will, perhaps if they're very open-minded, express an interest and not use it.
So is the truth that you're sharing that?
The truth that I'm sharing is the world is not really waiting for your point of view. The world is not, that's not going to happen. you're, to some extent, to some limited extent, the world is waiting for me to teach it English. I've had a lot of trouble coming to terms with the idea that for all of my university study, what the world wants me to teach it is something that I learned before I went to school. Been speaking English since I was an infant.
So
I didn't have to learn to do that.
the truth is
That's what the world
basically,
wants from me.
so
That's what the world wants from me.
if I hear your truth correctly, it is the world is not waiting for you. Just live your life, and what you do may be of benefit. Like you taught English and it was something that you learnt yourself. No one's waiting on anybody else. That's very true.
The world will let you know if it needs you. But it may not need you in the way that you hope.
Isn't that? Yes, I couldn't agree more.
If you keep your ears open, I was looking for work when I came back from Nicaragua. November, December, looking for work in the United States. I applied for jobs that I would have thought that I was a really excellent fit for, having previously been a high school science teacher in New York, having a master's degree in agriculture, jobs that involved teaching on environmental agricultural farms. Would have thought it was a good fit. Nobody contacted me. And then out of the blue, a friend of mine from years back said, would you like to teach English online for more money per hour than I could earn in the United States? I was like, well, look at that. The world apparently has a strong desire for me to teach English, even if that is not what my vision of myself is.
I actually...
There we are. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning, local time, 8 o'clock China time, I will be teaching English.
I totally hold with that. I suppose as a person, I think for myself, that to be guided, I've charged ahead in my life and I've learned this, and like yourself, I've got a master's and I've got this and I've got that and I do this and I do that. And yet the things that I think I want to do don't seem to be the things that I end up doing. And I truly believe that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be when I'm meant to be there. If I wasn't, I would be somewhere else. And so I do have a strong faith that it is exactly as it should be and I'm doing exactly what I should be doing, even though most of the time I do feel like this isn't not what I want to be doing. But anyway,
how did I get here?
Yeah, there's that song, isn't that? Is it talking? How did I get here? Where am I with this beautiful wife and this beautiful house? I can't remember this. I think it's Talking Heads. But what I'd like to say anyway is thank you. Thank you for taking your time to talk to me. And I'd love to talk to you some more again in the future. Perhaps that would be great if you're agreeable. So I'm going to just turn off the recording. Please don't go anywhere just yet.
Okay.
But I just want to say thank you. Your experience, I wanted to get a bit deeper into other things and mucky things, but time-wise, it maybe not so good.
Yeah, well, I tend to go on. Let me thank you for giving me the opportunity to be of any help to you that I can be.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you. I'm just going to put...
Just to close that circle.
Yeah. Right, then that was well, for me, I thought that was a lovely conversation with David, who's in Ecuador. So thank you to David for that, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe, take a look at my website and my other social media platforms to see if there's any way that I can assist you in anything. If you want to, I do stuff. You can find out more about me, authenticdiscovery.co.uk, Authentic Discovery on Facebook, Authentic Discovery with Helen on Instagram, Authentic Disc, I think, on Twitter. But in all fairness, I share the same kind of content. Facebook probably gets more because the Instagram thing, I'm not quite sure how to use those things yet. But thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Please, feedback would be much appreciated. So I'm going to say bye. It's evening where I am right now, so good evening. So, and on that note, blessings. Be mindful, be careful, be grateful, be kind. And thank you. Bye-bye.